Okay. For quite some time now, I've had this really old box camera, and I'd really love to try to get it working and to even use it. You know what, why don't I stand up straight and we can go ahead and talk about this further? This is a very uncomfortable position. My goodness. You know, I got a new filter and it's louder actually, so I hope that's enjoyable to you guys. This camera's pretty cool actually. See, you know, you got the shutter right there. You have 2 viewfinders on it. Believe it or not, it didn't start out this way. A lot of rust, and the shutter didn't work. So why don't I show you the work that went into that. So far we have removed a couple screws. The paint is what's chipping off. I assume anything made before the 1960s can probably cause cancer, so it's probably a good thing anyways to get it off. So I've removed much of the nails here, and I'm still having difficulty popping everything apart, and I'm just not quite sure how I'm gonna get rid of that. For God's sakes, why didn't they use screws? I got in so we can lift this out. Look at that! The reason I opened this up is because the shutter wasn't working. There's this wire here. When you do this, it just makes it becomes a shutter. And then this lever goes down, and then what this does is it manual, right? And it's just that simple, which is really interesting, I think. When I took this lens out of the camera, I scratched the lens. It might be fine. It might be small enough that it's not going to come through on the any final pictures I take with the camera. Dang it, why does that kind of thing always have to happen? This is the only part of the camera that is not, you can't glue it, you can't sand it. Welcome to Avery Miller ASMR. So of course, I've run into another issue. It's these rivets up here. I want to remove them so I can remove the rust from them. They are really in there. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do to get them out. I think I might have to Dremel the bottoms of them. Okay, it is the end of my first day working on this, and I have sanded and repainted every mechanical piece in the shutter here, but look at this. Oh, you serious?
2 hours later.
Not my strongest moment there. I added a little bit of wire down here so the spring won't catch. So now, if we do it, yay! It is reassembly time, and I'm in the process of putting everything back together, and I got this one viewfinder working. Do you see that? Isn't that crazy looking? We have a problem. I have spent, at this point, you know, give or take 19 hours on this, and if we assume my time has value, which is an assumption I'm not necessarily willing to make, but if we do it anyways, that means that this is technically one of the most expensive projects I've ever taken up, right? I was hoping I would finish this today, and I'm not sure if I'm going to now, because I sealed everything up. I nailed everything back together, got the viewfinders working, everything was going great, and you remember that wire I put in there to prevent the spring from rubbing up against the screw? It's getting stuck on the lens mount, meaning I have to take it apart again. Once I remove that wire, we're still going to have the issue of the spring getting stuck.
2 hours later.
I took everything apart, and I think I figured it out. This screw to the shutter mechanism was super loose. I've tightened it a bunch. It's all fine. So I think that was probably the original problem with this, is that this was loose. Oh, I need to put a wire in. No, don't put a wire in, idiot. Okay, I'm going to reassemble this again. Hopefully, at that point, I'll be able to do some repainting and just finish everything. And then it'll be ready to use. After forever, it's finally finished. You can see, like I talked about earlier, that the shutter's working now. I don't jinx it. It's been repainted. You can't even tell that there was a handle up here. I did a good job with that, if I don't say so myself. So now the only thing I have to do is wait for the film that I ordered online to come here. I was talking to PR, who is a big film nerd. He said that your first roll of film is probably not going to go very well. So I thought it would be a good idea to try some 35mm film in this camera before I tried the medium format film, which is what this camera was built for. So I found some film that my family had just sitting around. You can use 35mm film in medium format cameras. It's just a little bit difficult. You just gotta like tape it in there and kind of, it's, because I was doing this like a month or so ago, COVID was a really, really big issue. And the only place that I could find that would take my film was CVS. After approximately 11 days, I got a phone call that the film was ready, so I rushed over to CVS, and the guy at the counter showed me some of these pictures, and I said, oh no, $15 for these. He was like, are you sure? Are you sure you want to buy these? We can just toss it out. We don't have to charge you. I was like, nope, I'll take them. I don't know why this happened. My best guess is very silly. On the back of this, there's a little window that you're supposed to use to see the numbers on the medium format film. That let a bunch of light through. And the 35mm film doesn't have paper on the back of it, so that's probably it. But look at this, right? This is notable. You know, this is clearly my backyard. You can kind of tell it's super blurry, but it's clearly there. Most of these just look like abstract art, though. So finally, my medium format film came, and I said, let's give this a shot. So what I'm hoping for here is that there's so much depth, even if it can't focus a foot ahead or to infinity, we should get something in focus, ideally, right, if everything's functioning. So we can just go ahead here. Okay, and we can get a modern picture for comparison. I sent the film in to get developed, and I got it back, and I was mildly disappointed. Honestly, for a first try, these didn't turn out that horrible, but there were some pretty big mistakes that I apparently didn't account for at the beginning. The f-stop of this camera's lens is a lot lower than I had anticipated. Oh, excuse me, a lot higher than I had anticipated. You know, this is clearly a picture of my roof. This is a picture of my backyard. For whatever reason, each picture is overlaying the picture after it. I don't know why that happened. My only guess is that maybe I missed something. This camera was actually meant to be used with 620 film. There's just a tiny size difference with it. That's really about it. Honestly, considering I fixed this camera, and it's super old, and this was my first time shooting with it at a point where I was able to get any of the pictures back, I'm pretty happy with it. Am I going to be shooting everything on film from now on? Honestly, you're not a real YouTuber unless you're shooting everything on film. You better be clicking the shutter button for every single frame of your video, otherwise you're not a real YouTuber. I really like digital cameras. I like, you know, talking about 4K and 5K and 8K and all the Ks, and I like resolution, and I like all the gadgety side of cameras. But I gotta say, exploring film has been really interesting to me, and it's made me figure out that I enjoy it a lot more than I was expecting to. I've been looking at a lot of medium format cameras just because they're so pretty. They have this really beautiful design, and that made me come across a camera that is open source. You build it by 3D printing it, and it's called the Goodman Zone. I've been working on getting the pieces together and the lenses and stuff, and I'm gonna put it together. There's gonna be a video about that, so if you want to stay tuned for that, please do. There's something really nice about film where it's a very physical process. I think it's cool to be able to have the negatives and say, you know, the light actually hit these negatives. You know, like, I think that's kind of interesting. I know a lot of people talk about this whole thing of, oh, you only have a certain number of shots, and that forces you to really think about the shots you're taking, and I don't necessarily agree with that. Like, I understand what they're saying. That's certainly not the appeal for me. Like I've said before, if that was the case, I'd just carry around an iPhone 3G. It only has like the ability to save like 20 photos on it, and I just like click, click. I have that medium format camera I'm building, and I found a roll of film inside a 70-year-old camera, and I'm gonna try to develop it. So if you want to see a video about that, let me know. I'm really curious to see if there's going to be anything on the film. Thanks to my Patreon supporters. Love you guys. And see you later.